Basically, I remember that it's about the treatment of asylum seekers who are being deported back to their country, and basically this issue is being addressed because they've realised a lot of them have been very badly treated and often physically abused, and that's the main point I got out of the article. And it reminded me of a couple of, I think this issue's been on my mind a little bit because I spoke to a guy the other day who'd organised a concert, and he told me that he was an asylum seeker from Albania who'd claimed asylum and had lived in this country for 9 years, and he's organising a campaign with apparently something close to 50,000 people trying to do a protest, and in the aim to kind of give asylum seekers who have no criminal record and who've lived here for a certain amount of time more rights in this country. And the other thing that the article made me remember was when I actually witnessed this happening firsthand. I was flying to visit a friend, and as we got onto the aeroplane I heard this noise, and it was basically this woman, I didn't know if it was a man or woman because I didn't see them, but it sounded like either a woman having a baby or a kind of child being hurt. It was really horrible noise and quite chilling, horrible noise, and everyone on the plane was starting to get quite panicky. This was as the plane was preparing to take off, and basically it was a few rows behind me, and I could see these people were basically just holding this person's head down, just physically holding them down, and this went on for about 15 minutes, and then they eventually just bundled this person off the plane before we took off, because everyone was so scared and didn't know what was going on. And afterwards there was an announcement explaining that this person had been intended to be deported, but they'd had to remove them because of disruption to other passengers. And obviously that had quite a big impact on me at the time, so I guess when I read the article it reminded me of how horrible it was actually witnessing this happening.
I remember from reading the article the brutality that the immigrants were subjected to, and particularly how in such a public situation no one really stepped in to stop. For example, the young Ugandan woman who was physically assaulted effectively on a plane. Her head was covered with a coat. 2 people sat on her to restrain her. One woman asked what was going on but did nothing, and I think another woman said, leave her alone. But considering you're in such a small space on public transport, I just find that quite shocking that no one would do anything. What struck me a lot as well is that a lot of, 2 people used as examples were from Africa. Uganda stuck out for me just simply because my dad was born in Uganda when he was young. They moved away quickly because of the regime that began, because it was unsafe for them to live there and unsafe for him to have dual nationality. I think that's why that sticks in my mind so prominently.
Obviously I remember that it was about immigration and asylum seekers, but more specifically it was about the harsh reality of the way that they're controlled. Specific things that stick in my head are stuff like Dame Noir. I remember some of the names and things like that, and the people who were trying to investigate into the situation, and how it was the independent newspaper that started the whole thing because of an article that they published. I remember that the whole tone of the piece changed towards the end when it was one specific 38-year-old woman who had a horrific experience on a plane, and how she was just in her underwear and this woman was sat on top of her trying to cover her mouth, but it meant she couldn't breathe, and some of the passengers were trying to get involved, and eventually the pilot just said, "We're not taking her." And another first-hand memory was from a 16-year-old who was taken from a shower, and just generally how obviously they're trying to, you know, play up the empathy and stuff, because they're choosing these women who, but I'm sure there's, you know, millions of other people who've had equally horrific experiences.